welcome to another end of 2024 chat. I'm here with David Aird, who's IT Director of DAC Beechcroft. Hi, David.
Hi, Caroline. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. Thanks
Good,
so
good.
much for joining me.
No problem.
You'll all know David. He's been in the legal industry for 11 years. I can't believe it's 11 years. I
I
remember
know.
when you first joined.
I think everyone thought I'd be gone within about 3 weeks, but I'm still here. Can't get rid of me.
Well, I'm very glad you are. So we're here to do some reflections on a really another quite extraordinary year in legal tech and in tech generally.
Yeah.
So, and also perhaps a little bit of future gazing into 2025. So what would you say? You and I have talked many times over the past year, and we hosted an event for CIOs and IT directors looking at some of the developments in Gen AI. We don't just have to talk about Gen AI in this call. We are capable of talking about other stuff, I think. But what would you say are some of the key milestones of 2024, either for the firm or the industry or both?
Yeah, I was thinking this, Caroline. I think I'm going to call 2024 the year of realism, and 2025, I think we're going to see the real use of AI. So what I mean by that, I mean, we sort of met a year ago probably now at our head office in London, and I think everyone was very enthusiastic, mixed with some realism as well. Then I think Gartner talked about the hype cycle. I don't think we're in that sort of pit of depression or whatever they call it. I think what has happened is that things are taking longer to take flight. I think we're seeing lots of hallucinations, issues with things, etc. So I think we're beginning to get used to the tools, what they can do, what they can't do, some of the challenges of it. And I think it hasn't been landing on earth with a bump, but I think most people, certainly my sort of feeling, is more about realism in 2024. Yes, there are pockets of where we're using Copilot, people using Harvey, JLO, etc. But it is probably more pockets, and you continue to see people talking about AI being great for summarization and that sort of thing. Well, yes, it is, but we haven't quite seen the wide use of it as I think some of us thought we might see in 2024. But I think 2025 we'll see much more specific use and a sort of targeted use of where we can actually use AI reliably, and I think we're beginning to see, as I say, what it is good at and what it's not so good at, and combine that with the humans, which was probably always inevitable. But I think we can get a bit carried away in IT, can't we, with the latest shiny toy? And I think that has happened a bit again to us this time.
I think it's always that expectation versus reality, isn't it? Especially when it comes to the risk, and that was never going to be a really quick thing to get over with law firms being custodians of client data. And there's been so much discord, maybe that's not the right word, but perhaps disconnect right from the beginning in terms of, clients perhaps asking for, what you're doing and how we're seeing the benefit, and then law firms having to be responsible for making sure that there's no mistakes. I think it's so interesting you talking about Copilot. I think with those established vendors where you've got that trust, I think that's where we're seeing some of the most progress, and in terms, obviously you mentioned Gilo as well, but in the safety of your own environment, where you've got sort of less risk, understandably.
Yeah, and I think once you understand, we've understood more about how these tools work, and I think when people use them to ask specific questions, they expect a very black and white answer. And there's numerous things about where you'll get not the right, in your in most humans' opinion, not the right answer from a generative AI tool. But when you look behind about how it's working, it's not actually searching through the internet and finding you necessarily the correct answer. It's finding you the answer that it is producing based on its algorithms and all the rest of it. So I think once you understand that type of thing, that it's not necessarily going to give you that black and white answer, but it's they can also be quite, because of that, what they are good at is being creative, so creating creative solutions and thinking about things. I've used them quite a lot this year personally for that, which is, I think we just need to be careful on the hallucinations, that type of thing, particularly with the legal work, where you want the exact case reference, you want the exact, sort of outcome. Okay, you might want some nuance, creativity around it, but you do want that. You can't afford for that to be wrong. So you need to check it and make sure those references and case logic is correct.
Yeah, it's interesting because you were one of the firms perhaps doing some more progressive stuff when we spoke, but
Yeah,
albeit within a confined area, using Gen AI to help people find out holiday dates, and like,
yeah.
but you has that are you encouraging people to use it on a daily basis and become more familiar with it, and how perhaps how far advanced has that sort of work that you were doing come down the
Yeah,
track?
I mean, it's still, I would say a lot of it, there's still a lot of playing to be done. We have had some serious looks at some of the tools that you would expect that are out there. And I think they are useful, but they're not quite yet the silver bullet that we might think. So I think it's still, I'm quite happy with where we are, which is sort of a little bit still in the sandpit with some of the tools, and we've bought one or two of them, and we continue to develop our own. But it's, if anything, it's giving people, explaining to people what AI tools are, how they're useful. We've been chatting recently about Copilot. Do we need to do training on it? Should you really need to? But it's, some things that I hear other people are using it for, I wouldn't even think to use it. So it's not quite ubiquitous yet, but it will get there. And I don't think, you can either go big or you can sort of go small and grow it out. The way we've chosen to go a little bit smaller, a little bit more finely tuned, and then sort of giving it to champions, people that actually can get benefit. We've seen, for example, in Copilot and some of the AI tools, that certain job roles they're brilliant for, but other job roles, they're probably not quite there yet for their particular task that they do in their working day and things.
Yeah,
And now a lot of people are talking, the agent AI and all of this. So that's, and a lot of the co-pilot stuff, you can write your own agents and things now, which was the sort of thing you were alluding to there, that we had
yeah,
started to write, our own agents to find out HR data or this or that. And at that point, and I think AI, the tools have settled down a bit. At that point, when we were doing that sort of thing a year and a half ago, Microsoft, for example, and OpenAI were launching new models every other week and updating the way things work. So it's, trying to keep up with all that was quite difficult as well. And these tools
yeah.
are getting better and better. I personally subscribing to ChatGPT, whatever it is, or something, or and I find that, but I think, yeah, it's like 4.0 or something, or
Yeah,
4.0. And I find that innumerably be better than ChatGPT 4 or
yeah,
3.5 and things.
yeah.
The richness you get back from it and things. So it's quite useful in my personal life as well.
Yeah, I've started to use it for images much more. It's actually got really good, like,
Yeah,
which is, I mean, and these that's sort of an area where not necessarily relevant for this conversation, but
yeah,
it's going to start to impact on all sorts of things, where we would have been buying images, although then there's all sorts of
yeah,
questions over copyright, which I'm having to think about, but so fine. So you said about 2025, so it's going to be perhaps, the year when we see more use cases. And I suppose, A, is there anything that you want, that we can look forward to? But also, B, how do you juggle, the rest of the work? Because I find that this is so all consuming. Is that the case? And how are you handling that internally?
yeah. It can be difficult. We're having a look at our AI, doing a bit of drains up on our AI strategy. We've got a consultancy in helping us to write that up and take. What we're finding is, I think, there has been a tendency to jump straight to the tools, the usual IT story of jumping straight to, what, I've been at a conference, I've seen a shiny tool, and I'm sure my team would tell you I am no stranger to that either. Oh, I've seen this, we must have it. But I think where we've learned, and we're doing work with this consultancy, is we need to start to farm what the genuine business challenges are and what the issues are, and then look at down the list of the A to Z of what AI tools are out there, rather than concentrating on the tool first, which is completely Billy basic, but it just shows you yet again in IT we've been sort of running around chasing the Joneses and having a look at, and we should do that as well. One of the things we're definitely going to do is deliberately play in sandboxes and sandpits with certain tools, just to get a feel for how they work, how we can interrogate them, what results we get. But before we do any sort of large scale product launches or purchases of technology, we want to make sure we've got, matching the right tool with the right business requirement, which is super basic, but we have all, I think we've all in illegal got a bit carried away with
Yeah.
the tools rather than what's the problem you're trying to solve.
And this, yeah, because it's so easy to get sucked into having so many different tools. Well, you maybe can't do that from a
Yeah,
cost perspective, but the temptation is. But I like your sandbox idea, and hopefully the vendors will be facilitating, people
yeah,
using the technology, and kind of helping the industry. I think there's some quite reassuring trends out there in terms of some of the benchmarking activity that's going on as well.
yeah,
So we're working with John Krask at CMS,
right,
and Litig,
yeah,
trying to engage vendors in helping to understand more what their tools do, because it's all very
yeah,
well, isn't it, for us to talk about strategy, but half the time we're still trying to figure out what these tools do, and it hasn't
yeah.
always been that easy.
Yeah, and we have to do that as well. So this is where I
Mm.
think it's that two-pronged attack. I think, as I say, next year, you know, I think there's still a lot of edge cases, I would call it. AI can be useful for that little part there or that little thing there, and I think that will grow, but it'll almost grow organically outwards rather than, AI is going to take. I mean, if anyone's worrying about their job, I would say, don't worry. This is just going to be a useful tool for the considerable future, whereby instead of, using Excel or PowerPoint, as you said, the images, I've been using that a little bit as well. And I've seen it used more and more online, but I've also seen it whereby it's, I don't know, an article about Scotland rugby, but it's a picture of a South African rugby player, on the strip, I'm thinking, okay, is that just representative? And it
Yeah.
even says underneath it, created by AI. So it's
Right.
almost there.
Yeah.
In fact, the background I'm using here was created by ChatGPT. So case in point, it's really nice looking, but
It's
if you
really
look, the
nice.
words here are a
Yeah.
bit odd. I tried to inject our company logo onto it. The clock is also wrong. It's all a bit melty. The clock, it looks a little bit like a Salvador Dali type image. So it's almost there, but it's not quite.
It's not.
You would still need an artist from your own clients and markets department to add in your DAC Beechcroft logo and things to it. But
Yeah,
hey, as
definitely.
my fall background or my autumn background, it looks very nice.
And it's like the spelling is getting better. Like it's not always, but it's completely hit and miss. Like I did a
Yeah.
picture the other day where the spelling was perfect. It's like, what? I no longer ask it normally to put words in, because it's
Yeah.
very random. But
Yeah.
it's amazing to see the progress.
Yeah,
In,
and it is getting better, isn't it? So it's
just real quick to finish up on, in terms of, so I've been doing some work around, or speaking to people around women in AI, and
yep,
there's a big concern around the lack of diversity, and some of the results that you're getting from these LLMs, which shows that it's really not being trained on representative data, and some of
yeah,
the results that are being spewed out in images actually. So, for example, if you ask ChatGPT to give you an image of a lawyer, often give you a man. If you say give you a female lawyer, it will give you someone who looks like, not really what you would expect.
yeah,
Is that a concern? Are you doing? I know you've done a lot of, are very active in terms of promoting diversity in legal.
yeah.
Is this something that you've been looking into?
Yeah, I mean, it's something, again, it's something that concerns us. We've also had a couple of tenders now ask these sort of questions. So I don't think we've got a complete answer to it yet. We've got our own sort of standards and how we'll operate with it. But I think it is something for us all to watch. I remember being at a conference a while ago, this was about 5 years ago, and someone talking about it was blind CVs and they were using an AI tool. And they thought, this is brilliant. So, we're being really fair and we're only giving the jobs, our interviews to the candidates. But they found that it was still, in this case, I think it was a lot of public school, and I think a lot of men, or a lot of young men from public schools. And the reason being is, it noticed that the people that were being hired all did skiing and they all, played rugby, or whatever, without, again, introducing another stereotype. So although the
Right.
CV was blind and it didn't have the school or the education or the university on it, it was still taking life experiences that if you're a black inner city kid, you're probably less likely to be a bit of a skiing expert or play hockey at the weekend or something
Yeah.
and things.
Indeed.
So you do definitely have to be careful. And I think it is something, I mean, we've had this forever,
Yeah.
average room temperature are set for what men would like it. Women are always cold.
Mm.
The heights of, the chairs in a plane and theatres and things, they're all designed for certain things. I'm left-handed, everything is designed for right-handed people.
Mm.
You conference recently, people talking about people that are amputees and things. How do they open their iPad, their laptop? It's
Yeah.
can be quite difficult. You know yourself, maybe you've broken an arm or you've got a sore wrist or something. Opening something with one hand can be really difficult. Why
Yeah.
does life have to be like that? So it's
Yeah.
diversity in the widest context, I think, is good for everyone.
Yeah.
Hey, and myself, obviously, you're a young spring chicken, but for those of us not getting any younger, the eyesight's beginning to go, the hearing. So
Yeah.
I'm personally beginning to get more and more alive to those sort of things. And if we can use AI to help there, and two, be careful with the diversity stuff, then so much the better.
Yeah, interesting. It's kind of a positive in some ways. Let's be careful in terms of we need to really, I think, anyway, conversation for another time, but I think, we do need to have like Law Society, City of London Law Society, perhaps sort of thinking about these things. But actually, I like your point, AI could potentially bring benefits as well, in terms of helping people with
Level the playing field,
disabilities.
sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Sadly, we're at time, but I really appreciate it. And do you
No
know what would be
problem.
so fun next year? Like if we can revisit this
Revisit.
and see whether we were right or wrong.
Well, thank goodness I've not made too many punchy things. So I think it's just really about next year, being a bit more realistic, and so we'll see improvements, and I
Yeah.
think there'll be some worthwhile things that will come out of it.
Okay. Well, I really look forward to catching up then.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Thank you, Caroline. Nice to see you.
You too.